Consequence Podcast Network.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome to the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast presented by the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Michael Rothman, editor-in-chief and president of Consequence of Sound, and I'm here with my co-hosts,
Randall Colburn, the rockin' one,
and Mackenzie Gerber.
Now, you can hear us pretty well, right? I think so. That's
Yes.
because we're recording from a studio here in Chicago, Illinois. That wasn't always the case, though. When we started this podcast, we were actually huddled around an old Yeti microphone in Mac's apartment that he doesn't even live in anymore.
That's right.
And there were not 4 or 3 of us. There were like 6 or 7. So we wanted to go back to our older episodes and make sure that you, constant listener, actually have a good grasp on knowing that this is not how it's always going to sound. You know, it's a very rough quality, and we just happen to have that rough quality over Stephen King's most iconic books. So
Yeah, it's rough. But I'd say, for Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining, Rage, and The Stand, I believe.
Night Shift, too.
Yeah.
And
Night
Night Shift.
Shift, yeah.
We recorded those episodes in a very sort of primitive way, doing our best. That was before we got our studio, which makes us sound so lovely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you'll notice that the audio quality is going to be a little bit not up to par, but I'd say the content of the conversations are still very, very good. I'm very proud of the analysis we did. You'll notice a few other changes too, like in these early episodes, we talk about everything.
Everything.
Yeah, we didn't now we stretch our legs a bit. We do separate episodes for the movies, for other things. And for here, we're basically like, let's talk about all the Stephen King news, as well as the book, as well as the films, as well as the plays, as well as everything. So these episodes run long. Well, I mean, a lot of ours do, but these run extra long because we're talking about those things. And you'll also notice that kind of the way that we break down our conversations now is a little bit different. We refine that over time.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll notice that it's a little bit rougher, but it's the same quality Losers Club content
And
that
these,
you've always wanted.
these episodes nearly killed us. The Night Shift episode, I got the flu because we recorded everything.
We
in one
recorded
day.
for 11 hours straight,
Yeah.
I think.
Two
Yeah.
episodes back to back covering all 20 stories?
All 20 stories
And the movies.
And the movies. It was exhausting. I think towards the end of the episode, I started fading away.
Dan started crying.
Dan started crying. I cried in the Shining episode, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, these episodes are special.
They're very good episodes.
They're very special episodes, but we did want to make sure that you didn't go into this podcast thinking that it's going to sound like this forever. Because obviously, as you could hear from us right now, that's just not the case.
Yeah, if you're just popping in to hear like, oh, I love Salem's Lot, I'm going to check out this new podcast. Why does it sound like they're recording underwater? You know, we just never really thought that. I think that, you know, we were testing things out. We were seeing if anybody would even care if we did this podcast. And luckily, a lot of you guys did care, and you listened and supported us and followed us on social media. And so we were able to, you know, beef up the sound, make things sound better, expand our lineup, and refine the way that we do things as it is now. So.
Because so much has changed since 2017, not only with us, but the whole world at large. And you're going to hear about all of it as you're journeying through each one of these episodes.
So why don't we venture together into King's Dominion, a.k.a. the classroom at the center of Richard Bachman's Rage.
Today, we're going to be discussing a controversial entry in the Stephen King canon, and that's the short novella Rage, which was released as a standalone book in 1977, and it was the first book that Stephen King released under his pseudonym, Richard Bachman. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our panel because we have a new member, our Bev Marsh of the Losers Club. And Allison, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Allison Shoemaker. I'm a staff writer at COS, and I first got into Stephen King when I read Night Shift at a really inappropriate age. I think I might have been like 7.
That's like
And
earlier
I
than
got
any of us.
weirdly I had this problem when I was a kid where I started reading really, really young. So eventually teachers would just send me to the library during English because like I didn't need to do any of the things they were doing. So I just started reading whatever the hell I wanted, which is maybe not the best thing. But I got really obsessed with the story in Night Shift about the girl who kills herself.
The last rung on the ladder?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't got. Yeah.
And it was not a healthy thing for a 7-year-old to be crazy obsessed with.
That's
I
interesting.
also, my first actual encounter with King, though, was also at an inappropriately young age. I was 5 or 6 when my Aunt Sue decided she wanted to rent us a movie. And she thought that Cujo was just a movie about a dog. So I watched Cujo, and it fucked me right up. I'm not gonna lie, that was really freaky. Her really sweet, very docile dog Misty was just laying on the floor, and right near the end of the movie, she started having a bad dream, and her tail started going, and I screamed and ran out of the room. It was real. I was real mature.
I've never watched Cujo with a dog in the room.
You got a murder dog, so you should watch it next
Got
time.
my own Cujo. I have a pit lab mix. He's very docile, very calm, but he looks a little fearsome.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, he has a history, so we don't.
No, he
we
doesn't.
haven't really.
It doesn't
haven't
really
talked
have
about
a history.
No.
We love you, Hank.
Because these episodes are, our goal with this podcast is to be as comprehensive as possible. As you might have noticed, our Shining episode ran 3.5 hours long. We do not apologize for this because this is the actual goal. We want to be comprehensive. We want to be dorks. We want to go deep. We want to engage on every single level that we possibly can. And that includes the books, but also the adaptations. The Shining, there was tons to talk about. Rage, maybe not so much, but we still have plenty of thoughts.
We do want to apologize for missing out on the opera of The Shining.
Several of you
we
pointed
will
that
be
out.
doing a special episode of all opera adaptations for Stephen King's work. We're very excited about that episode, and we're going to go actually try to find opera singers to give their thoughts on what could possibly be some better adaptations that they can bring to the stage. So that is an area of The Shining that we did not we did miss, but we're going to make up for.
I didn't even know about that, and several listeners sent us messages and pointed that out. So kudos to you guys. Also, I wish I had the person's name now. Who sent us the Trump Putin Shining?
I would have to look at the name again, but that was genius.
Thank you for sending
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
We'll shout out your name next time if you're cool with that. I mean, if you don't want your name revealed, that's fine. But that was that. I laughed so hard as soon as I saw that. So thanks for sending. If for any of you listeners who didn't see, it was the Dog Man and what's the guy's name?
Horace Derwent.
Horace Derwent. That
favorite
scene,
character.
but
Favorite character.
but obviously photoshopped where Trump is the Dog Man and Putin is Derwent. So thank you for sending that.
Why don't you two introduce yourselves?
Oh, sure. Hey, I'm Dan Caffrey. If you're a first-time listener, hi. If you've listened before, I've been on a couple episodes. Senior staff writer of Consequence of Sound and Kingaholic.
He is a kingaholic. He is a kingaholic. You've read every piece of King?
Except for the Bizarre... Is it Bizarre Bad Dreams or Bizarre
Oh, yeah,
Bad
Bizarre Bad Dreams.
Bizarre Bad Dreams. And I haven't read that memoir he just... Or the one about his college years, which I really want to. So I'm debating whether to read those now or when we get to them. But it'll be so long.
Yeah.
before
Well, we're going to probably get to those probably around 2021, 2022. So I think that'll be,
Maybe just read it then.
Yeah, maybe you might want to just read it. But I mean, knowing you, it doesn't matter because this is one of the specialties of Mr. Caffrey is that he doesn't have to reread a lot of the books because he has a photographic memory. And he's kind of like Johnny Five in the Short Circuit films, in which he can consume books like it's it's a task or something. It's insane. Like we were driving home from my bachelor party once. Like I had multiple ones, but no, we were driving home from my bachelor party, and he just randomly found a book that was in my brot's bag.
It was
or something.
ripped by Greg Kot.
Greg Kot, so Chicago boy, Greg Kot, and he managed to pretty much finish this 400-page book by the time we got back from into Chicago. Granted, we were only driving from Minneapolis, so it's not that far. But he's just, honestly, it's just he is a robot when it comes to reading, and he remembers details like it's no other. So
And who
I
are
am
you?
personally jealous of that. And my name is Michael Rothman. I'm editor-in-chief over at Consequence of Sound. And I struggle with details sometimes because I have a really weird short-term, long-term memory. So if I could, I would almost be like... what's his name? Leonard in Memento, where I would just tattoo everything onto my arms and my legs. I have to take notes for everything because I managed to lose details of it. But I could also recall, pretty much the entire supporting cast for Halloween 3. So, really, really useful details in my head. So, I'm, glad to be back on the podcast.
On that note, we're glad to have you all here. As you'll see, the cast will always be changing, just like the sequels to Children of the Corn.
Yeah. Does that make Justin and Mac? Well, no, because that kid's in. Who's the kid who plays Isaac? Who's in like every single one?
Is he in every single one of the children?
Not every single one, but
the character is.
And he directs them and everything like that. So
He's made it his life's work.
Yeah, Justin and Mac will be back, of course. I sat out for Salem's Lot. There's when you have 7 losers, as within it, not all 7 can be on every podcast. So
I will say that Allison is you played a certain King character at our event last year, which was probably the MVP of the show.
Oh yeah,
No
pretty
way.
Pretty
Was
great.
Not.
Pretty great because
Was not.
you actually acted out. You got somebody in the wheelchair.
Stephen Arroyo,
Yeah.
who also writes for us. Allison played Annie Wilkes at a live Stephen King event that Consequence of Sound hosted at the Music Box. You were great. I would say that was the most accurate, just personality-wise, and you embodied the part very well, so good job.
It was pretty
Thanks,
great.
guys.
Allison also has a pet pig with her right now that you
I
can't
do.
see.
I was a great fit because I have a naturally slack face. It's just like the muscles above my mouth don't work, so I was able to just kind of stare. It was great.
It was really fun.
So let's move in. Let's talk a little bit about a little book called Rage.
Previously titled Getting It On.
Getting It On, which is horrible, and I hate that line. This was a book that, by all accounts, Stephen King wrote when he was in college, when he was, probably 19, 20 years old, which I think allows us to forgive it for a lot of its sins, which we can discuss. But before we get into that, I'm going to read a synopsis here. We have 2 different synopses. And we also like on the show to discuss kind of what editions that we initially found Rage in, which I think is interesting now because it's out of print. So if we had it, we had to read it in an older edition. But let's read a synopsis first from do you know the publisher, Mike?
Let me.
This is an old. He's got an old, busted up hardcover of the Bachman books here.
Funny story about this one.
Okay.
All right. And we're gonna probably talk about how it's been, stripped away at this point. Because he's tried to couch it. But I actually bought one of the Bachman books on Amazon before I started reading it, and some liar gave me a newer one without Rage in it, even though it had the photo I saw when I bought it. Was the 70s, orange cover paperback one.
With the skulls on it?
Yeah, it was probably the 80s one because I think I gathered them in the 80s. But I was hoping I was going to get that one, and I got this dumb modern one that looked like it was from 1997. It looked like a Wired magazine too, and and I was furious. So I had to find another one, and I kept I even contacted the seller. I was like, this better have Rage in it. He probably thinks I'm a killer or something. But I really want this short story or whatever.
Because real life school shooters have professed their fandom for this book. And
I
checked it out. So,
we'll
talk
discuss
about
that. Yeah,
but this is this looks like it's the Now Books trademark. So it has it seems like it's from the New American Library version. So
cool. Then on the back there is one line synopsis. It says a high school show and tell session explodes into a nightmare of evil. I think that's kind of inaccurate. I wouldn't say show and tell is really what's going on.
Because show and tell is something that would actually happen in school, and he doesn't do that. He just walks in the room and shoots Mrs. Underwood.
You're missing the most important part of that
What?
synopsis, by the way, which is the ellipses.
Oh yes, there is an ellipses, and it looks like all the synopses on the back here.
Nightmare
of, this
of
edition.
Evil.
And then
Aren't
here
all-
I have a longer synopsis that is from the original paperback version of Rage that came out. And then, again, as we said, this was a book that he wrote in college, and then after kind of the massive success of Carrie, Salem's Lot, and The Shining, I think that publishers were like, what else you got? What else you got? What else you got? Like,
It's basically what John Grisham's been doing for the past 30 years.
Yeah,
so
I think King just pulled out this old manuscript, and I mean, I think maybe, and this is something I wasn't able to find him talking about, sort of his impetus to release it initially. If you have something.
Well, in this because I know it's not the version you have, in this compilation of the early Bachman books, which is the same one I had, mine's just in paperback, but it has the like the illustrations of each novel on the cover. But he has an essay in the beginning of that called "Why Was Bachman?" and he talks about
interesting,
why he released these. Now, I think this would change now because of his feelings towards Rage, but in this one he talks about how it was a pretty good book, and it was written in college, and it was like a mixture of them, wanting to see what else he had, but also just this thing of once he become not a household name but famous, trying his hand at other types of fiction and
without
seeing
that expectation.
Exactly, and seeing if he could be successful. The essay is pretty good. It's called "Why Was Bachman?"
The essay is better than the actual book. So
I would actually agree with that. Yeah.
So here's the synopsis from that version. A disturbed high school student with authority problems kills one of his teachers and takes the rest of his class hostage. Over the course of one long, tense, and unbearably hot afternoon, that's a typo, Charlie Decker explains what led him to this drastic sequence of events, while at the same time deconstructing the personalities of his classmates, forcing each one to justify his or her existence. What an asshole.
Oh, man.
It's also not what happened.
Yeah.
I think that this is a hard book to synopsize in a lot of ways.
Well, it is because it's unlike a lot of King books, it's very light on plot, and it thinks it's very complex on theme, but it's really not, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
So I guess from here we like to move into what we call the hook.
Yes. Don't you see? Don't you see how clear it all is? Not only can you see the future, I can change it. You can change it, exactly.
What is the anchor for this story? What is kind of the inciting incident, the thing that kind of, is the engine of the story? And I think here it's the idea of a school shooting or somebody bringing a gun to school, which... that I think when King wrote this, probably in the 60s?
77, I think.
Well, that's when it was released.
He probably wrote it in the 60s.
Yeah. I mean, when did Tower happen? That Texas shooting.
That was early. That was, I think. Don't quote me on this, listeners, but I think that was in the 60s, late 50s or early 60s. Right? Look that up. Just
1966. Oh no, maybe it is 1966. Yes,
That's
August 1, 1966.
The University of Texas shooting.
I think he might have been inspired in a weird way by that shooting, because he also wrote Cain Rose Up around that time, which is a short story from Skeleton Crew where a guy goes up into a tower and shoots people.
And school shootings back then were, of course, they happened, but they weren't, it's sad to say, they weren't as common as they are now. They this is pre-Columbine, obviously. This is... I don't want to say we are not shocked when a school shooting happens these days, but it's not... Unfortunately, it's not as much of a unique event as it once was. So I can see the impetus behind writing, because it is a horrifying scenario in a way, and especially at this time when I don't think there had been a ton of popular fiction about that. There's still really not. I mean, school shootings seem to be something that I don't want to say taboo, but they have to be handled a very specific way. Yeah. It's not like other genre fiction where you can just write about a serial killer or a bank robber or something like that and just treat it however.
Honestly, the only thing I could think of that even comes close to being like kind of tongue-in-cheek about this, as it is in this book, is Bobcat Goldthwait's what is it?
God Bless
America, which is kind of takes that sort of idea of adding some smarm to it, which is definitely what's in this book.
Exactly. Yeah, which is interesting because it definitely isn't. When I think of the fiction or just pop culture I have consumed about school shootings, I think of Elephant, which isn't smarmy at all. That it's very just kind of. Have you guys seen that We Need to Talk About Kevin? Isn't that about like a school shooter or something? It's weird because as much as we'll get into our feelings about whether we think it works or not, but as much as I don't like Rage, it does give this weirdly unique treatment to a school shooting that I haven't really seen.
Well, it's not a shooting, but it feels a little bit like Heathers, only Heathers does it way better.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did you know the first school shooting in the U.S. was in 1764?
Was it in Michigan, right? Was it at that farm?
1764.
Greencastle, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I know there was one. I think it was in Michigan. There was one. It was like in a schoolhouse. Like it was just one building, and I think the guy used explosives and all this stuff. He killed like the entire school.
Oh
It was
yeah,
a long time ago.
Yeah, I actually wrote a thing on that.
Cannot believe I totally blanked on Heathers. That's like one of my favorite movies. So.
Yeah, I confession have not seen Heather. So real quick. And you guys can spoil it for me. Does that end in a piece of school violence? Or?
Well, it's more of like varied deaths though. Like like JD, who's played by the inimitable Christian Slater, who I've had a crush on since I was little.
Who hasn't?
The coolest, like represents cool to me forever. He plays a character named JD, and he has a gun on him, like throughout the whole thing. Which he uses, but they use like poisons, they have like bombs, they have like a bunch of different things throughout the movie, but it definitely is like the first real like pop culture example of that, like absolutely.
And that's dark, but also tongue-in-cheek.
It's a dark comedy, right?
It's so over the top, Heathers, that I think that's how they can get away with it, and I think it's such touchy stuff because. When King wrote this, he didn't understand the implications, I think. Because, you write about serial killers, like you said. You write about murders. You write about these people. You don't write it worrying that people are going to imitate them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's not something that is a precedent in pop culture, which when he wrote this, it wasn't. I think this was his way of exploring both his own anger that he was holding as a young man, which I think, I think any of us can relate to the idea that when you're young and you feel misunderstood, there is sort of a part of you that wants to scream at the world and to do something that will get everybody's attention. And I think that's sort of what he was going for with this. And the idea of creating somebody who brings a gun into a classroom and is portrayed as smart, but disturbed, but at the same time, like, kind of cool.
Like the other kids caught into him pretty early, which is
and
gross.
we'll touch on that because that's, I think, sort of the real problem with the story, but I don't think he understood the implications of what he was doing, and King pulling the book from publication, which we'll touch more on, really came from, I think, he started to see the ripple effect. He saw school shootings, and these kids were either talking about rage or they had copies of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of this goes back to Lord of the Flies. I mean, the fact that they have like a Pigpen character in here, they have the whole concept of this like leader with the antagonistic kid that's there also. So it's like the clashing of the two parties. He names Castle the name Castle Rock comes from Lord of the Flies. Clearly, that book had an impression on him, and if he wrote this as a young author, I'm not a writer like in terms of for fiction, but I know that. When I tried to be at a certain age in college, there were authors that were absolutely impressionable. I mean, like I tried to be Bret Easton Ellis for like 4 years in college. Like I was
tried hard to be Jonathan Safran for.
So
hard.
Lots of ambitions, guys.
But that's natural, though. I think as a writer, because you have to find those. We
have to imitate before you innovate.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I guarantee this book, like Lord of the Flies, he read was a huge impression on him, and he said, "Well, maybe I can do a modern spin on this in the school."
Well, and it's funny you mention that because I remember when I was 10 or 11, I read Lord of the Flies and I read The Chocolate War, which are both books that deal with youthful rebellion in a way, but in a very dark sense. And I remember just thinking, I didn't even stop to think like, oh, this stuff is really wrong and bad. I more just thought it was cool that these books represented kids sort of doing their own thing and in a weird way trying to act like adults. Like I remember in The Chocolate War, there's this whole secret society called the Vigils in school. Have you guys read The Chocolate War?
God, that's such a good book.
It's an awesome book. It's still really good. And this guy Archie, who sort of leads them, he keeps all these like files on every kid in school, just what their weaknesses are, what they're like, how they can be manipulated. And now I look back and you're like, oh, Archie's a total asshole. But when I was a little kid or even a teenager, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, what, that's neat. And so obviously, I don't think I'm a murderous, dark, bad person. But when you are a certain age, I think that idea of pulling a fast one on other people and being looked at as this kind of like smarter than everyone else, I think that is really appealing. Every year, I adjudicate plays like that high schoolers write for thespian competition, and the common theme I always see is the main character being this kind of dark, depressed but very smart and funny kid who's always able to like. He's smarter than everyone else, and he's always able to pull a fast one. And I get it. I don't think that's a good way to go with a character, but I totally get when you're at King's age why you would want to do that.
And I get that too. But I think that with as mental health awareness and sort of, forgive me for using this phrase. I always get yelled at online when I use it, but toxic masculinity, things of that nature. Are becoming more apparent now, and this idea of entitlement within young white men, that they deserve to be, coddled or admired for their darkness and for their misunderstood genius. I think that is something, I say all this because I went through that, and I wrote stories that were like this, where it was like, pity me. And if only people could see this side of me. And I think Stephen King said in an interview where he was talking about the book in Entertainment Weekly, he said, certainly in this sensitized day and age, my own college writing, including a short story called Cain Rose Up and the novel Rage, would have raised red flags, and I'm certain someone would have tabbed me as mentally ill because of them. And this is something he's been struggling with, is he's like, we need the freedom to be able to write what we want to write, but at the same time, we need to be careful and look for red flags in art that discusses these sorts of things. But just that's the thing though, is he's like, well, I didn't have those things, but I was going through that. I am the same way. I wrote stuff that people probably could have tagged me for mentally ill when I was young, but nobody did, and I turned out okay. But it's I think that this is something that I think we're struggling with in sort of the modern age of, when people are writing these kinds of stories, how best do we process it in an age when school shootings and male entitlement at a young age and stuff like that is becoming more prevalent?
Well, I think part of the problem, too, is that while the words are lovely, the writing is just not very good, right? There are a lot of stories out there about young people who feel misunderstood and behave rashly, and sometimes you read them as a young person and you feel a certain kind of empathy that when you read them as you're older, you're like, oh, well, I completely missed the point of this entire story because I wasn't far enough out of that time in my life. You read The Catcher in the Rye as an adult, and it's a completely different experience than when you read it when you're 16. Or I recently reread Emma, Jane Austen's Emma, for the first time since I was 15.
Yeah.
And that book is hilarious. And I didn't realize it because I didn't get that she's an idiot. Because she's young, and we're all idiots when we're young. And I think the problem with Rage is it doesn't read differently now.
Right. That's a great way to put it.
I don't think, oh, well, that's because he's 16 and we're like that when we're 16. It just feels, I don't know, dishonest.
It just feels like King's not in on it.
Exactly.
Yes.
You don't get that King is criticizing this guy and saying how fucked up he is. When I read it now, I actually did reread this one for this episode just because I wanted to make sure because I did interpret the book so incorrectly when I was younger. Rereading it, you're like, oh no, when King wrote this, I think he thought Charlie was just as cool. I'm not saying King at the time thought it was good to go and shoot your teacher. I don't believe that at all. But personality-wise and Charlie's struggle, I think he thought that was something to relate to, and that was something cool.
Well, I think a lot of the insight to glean from this is that, I don't think that King traditionally writes himself into these books at all, and I'm not going to say that he's written himself into this one, but there is something weird about this fringe character, which clearly he had to identify with somebody existing on the fringe. Just based on how his past was, and how he's written, characters that we've already discussed, and how he's kind of you can definitely see his own self in there, whether it's Ben Mears or even parts of Jack Torrance. I do wonder if this, and I don't want to make any assumptions, and this is going to be an assumption, is that idea of having Ted, who represents the jock, and then having this guy that, Charlie, who's on the fringe, there is that weird dynamic of if you do exist on the fringe in high school, you're very mistrusting of everyone in high school. And that is one thing that I will say in this book that I did see. He did capture that feeling of, if you are out on the opposite end, you hate everybody. And I think that you know, is someone that had to go through Catholic school while growing up in a family that was Jewish but also not. Like it was like I definitely like I had a mistrust of everybody at the school. Not did I walk into a classroom and shoot my English teacher and sit down at a desk and
math teacher.
Math teacher, yeah, and have all these other things. No, I understand. The one thing I will say about this book is that I do think he captures that feeling of having that like us versus like not even us versus them, I versus them, and that might be the strongest part of this story, the line of it. And I do wonder how he himself put him like what position, what point of view does he have here.
And I think along those lines, I think a great preface to teasing out those themes is to just kind of look at how other people like interpreted it, or school shootings that actually are linked to rage. There's several. One I'm going to talk about pretty intensely that happened in 1988, but because the book was released in 1977, but there are no reported incidents until 1988.
Till it became a King book.
Till it became a King book and not a Bachman book. And so, but like, you know, a lot of them, they merely found copies of Rage in the possession of the school shooter. There was a guy named Dustin Pierce in 1989 in Kentucky who took his classroom hostage, but nobody got hurt. But people found a copy of Rage in his possessions. Another guy, Scott Pennington, this is in 1993 and also in Kentucky, weirdly. And there's another Kentucky one later, too. Basically, this guy actually shot his English teacher in the head during her 7th period class. And then he subsequently shot and killed the school's custodian as well, held the class hostage for 20 minutes. And right before this, he had written an essay on Rage and was apparently mad that the teacher he shot in the head gave him a C on it. And he was apparently mad about that.
Hey.
And then in 1996, a kid named Barry Lucadis shot his students in his algebra classroom, just like in Rage, and actually said the line, "This sure beats algebra, doesn't it?" Which, when this happened, people were reporting that was directly a line from Rage, which it isn't. It's "This sure beats panty raids" is the line in Rage. But
still, I think it's close enough.
It's close enough. I mean, and they found a copy of the book in his possession. So, but yeah, and then I think the one that really pushed King to take the book out was, I think up to that point, the biggest school shooting, at least in modern times, which was in 1997 in West Paducah, Kentucky, where...
again?
Yeah, 8 students were shot at a prayer meeting. And I remember, I was old enough at that time that I remember hearing about that. That was like pre-Columbine, I think, the school shooting that people were most... that was in the media the most, and they say he had a copy of Rage within the Richard Bachman omnibus in his locker. This was the incident that moved King to allow the book to go out of print. But, I mean, if you go back to the very first one in 1988, Jeffrey Lynn Cox, this is the most blatant use of that how much Rage was factored into the shooting. I've got some from a LA Times article. This is really fascinating stuff, but basically this guy walked into a classroom and, you know, started shooting. He didn't kill anybody right away. And the way the guy described it, the shooter himself in a thing, he's like, it was all like a movie. It was like I was following myself around with a camera, watching the back of my head, but not able to intervene. It was just something that had to be done. And then it says he put a Van Halen song on a portable tape deck. Did they want anything, he asked? Food, drinks, smokes? They did, so he called the school office. Someone will die, he told the secretary, if a carton of Camel Lights, 4 large pepperoni pizzas, and 2 packs of Coke and 7-Up, diet and regular, aren't delivered within 20 minutes. Then he turned to the class with a chuckle and told them not to worry, that he didn't think he could shoot anyone. If his demands weren't met, he would just fire into the ceiling to make it appear that he was in control. And so he was acting like Charlie Decker.
That's like almost a direct retelling of the plot.
Yeah,
in a way.
And then he was apparently was obsessed with the book, and he also was suicidal, and kind of he discovered rage when he was suicidal in the hospital. He was in a hospital because he had tried to kill himself, and he was like under care, and he started reading Rage, and by all accounts, and by his own account, he read the book over and over and over and over and over again. And and then his quote, and this is what's really kind of terrifying, and this is where I think it really gets into the main problem with Rage, was that I had a message I wanted to get across of unmasking people, of disrobing the images everyone puts on, of making people real. I still think I had the right idea, but it was the wrong way of doing it. It was very foolish. And the article describes, they say, it wasn't a classroom full of fictional teenagers experiencing a spiritual cleansing while rigor mortis set in on their algebra teacher. There wasn't anybody to snap at the big man on campus, as one of King's characters does, saying, don't you realize this could be the most meaningful experience of their lives? And I think what this story does is really draw the distinction between what King used. He used school shootings as a way to explore the spiritual cleansing of people, like a Lord of the Flies kind of thing, and the way everybody reacts to the school shooting is so nonchalant, and we'll talk about that. But here, it's like what the kid realized was, I'm going to go in there and be cool, and everybody's going to look at me like they looked at Charlie in the book, and that wasn't the case. And then like the way it ended was, the moment there was a weakness, one of the kids ran up, knocked him down, and they all piled on him, and then he got arrested.
Which is what would hopefully happen, because something that really bothers me in the book, and once again I think it's because King is not in on what he's doing, is the fact that the kids react just like, oh, our math teacher's dead or whatever, and that's not cool to me, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you look back at other famous shooters like Mark David Chapman, I mean, he took it as this, just what you were discussing before with like, well, I have to prove, that so-and-so is this, and bring out the real person in them. I mean, he thought John Lennon was a phony. Like he thought he had this like mission that he got out of the Holden Caulfield character in Catcher in the Rye, and he thought, well, I have to bring out the reality in someone, and I have to find the truth. Basically, it was like almost like him, like his way of like pulling the actual truth, being like, see, this is a person this is who this person really is. And it's like this almost like self-righteousness that the shooter, like just using him as an example, that drives him. It's like the self-righteousness is his fuel. And I think that's definitely what you can see in Charlie here for sure. I mean, I think that's kind of what is his whole motivation, kind of. Maybe I'm just like looking way too into it, but
no, I think that's accurate. And I mean, going back to these books getting pulled this book getting pulled because of all these incidents. Obviously, I mean, we're all writers here, and I think we're all big proponents of free speech. I think Stephen King is too. But at the same time, I think just like it's your right to write that, I think it's your right to take it away if you realize the effect it's having. And I think kudos to him, because I mean, five. How many incidents? 5 school shootings, something like that.
5,
at least 5 that we know.
5
of.
That were reported. Yeah.
5 that were reported. I mean, God, 3 of them in the same state within a decade of each other. So that's on average 1 every 2 years. If you're seeing that, now would these kids have done something similar had they not read Rage? Probably, because I don't think the book is what caused them to. But still, if they're taking inspiration from it on a consistent basis, I do think it is. I think when it gets to that level, like people are dying because of this, maybe you do have some responsibility as a writer to evaluate. Okay, how is my book appealing to this certain demographic of mentally unsound people, and why is it appealing to them, and is it up to me to do something about it?
Well, I think it's dangerous. There's always the argument that anything is game for storytelling. Like this. If you can write a great story, you should write a great story. I think the reason why there's always been a cloud, and especially now, about like school shootings, is that the idea of a school shooting is going to always involve children or like young adults, and it's not just the fact that those deaths are always the hardest to handle, but it's also that by setting a story in that, you have to be very delicate on who is going to actually be the shooter, because if you make something that's very cool and make something that's very, kids are impressionable. Like, you're the most impressionable, that's like the most impressionable time of any lifespan. Like, it's like is that era. So I think that when you do create these stories that involve school shootings, you have to be very precarious on like how you're going to, involve the shooter. Like there has to be some sort of even like, and especially now, like I don't even know if there's even subtle commentary anymore because there's just subtext and context is so hard is so easy to lose. So that even if you did something that was like a Heathers, where like there's a JD that's obviously a bad person, but he's kind of cool on the screen, but then you realize like no, this is a perversion, like he's crazy. Like,
well, there's a reason there haven't been a bunch of school shootings or instances of school violence inspired by Heathers, at least not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I think, and I think this what it really boils down to in Rage is that Charlie is depicted as someone who is mentally ill, but the omniscient narrator seems to view him as justified in a certain way. The death of the teachers that he kills are downplayed to an almost comical effect, and the students are so nonplussed by the whole thing. They look at Charlie as a curiosity rather than a threat, and the way Charlie engages with them is so nonchalant and so confident that it betrays any kind of recognizable human emotion. The only person who acts in a way of self-preservation and heroism is Ted Jones, who is
portrays the
villainized,
bad guy,
who's villainized for being a suburban lame-o. Like he's the jock who will never leave the town and get married, and how dare you? And I think that's the problem with the book is that. Charlie serves as almost a guru to these kids, and the kids begin to look at him as such. And he's so eloquent in his intentions, and that when the scene that really rankles me in this book is when he's talking to the cop, Philbrick, and it's like this is a cop who is a seasoned, negotiator, like hostage negotiator or whatever, and this 16-year-old kid like just starts accusing him of like I can't remember. Oh, he starts talking about going down on his wife and stuff like that, and that like bests him.
Oh, I think that's the Shrink. He talks to the
yeah,
Shrink
that's right.
down.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, all the authority figures are bested by this 16-year-old kid who we're supposed to see as disturbed, but by exploiting people and shaming people for various things, usually sexual, he wins all the time.
But it's also the revelation too. I mean, like like we were saying, like Ted is this person that is actually the most sympathetic character in the story because they have the whole backstory about how he has like a really like troubling his parents, like I think his mother was an alcoholic.
An alcoholic. He had to quit football because he had to support his family.
I mean,
and somehow that's viewed as being his dirty little secret.
Yeah.
It's really not great.
And also too, even when he's like really ashamed because he reveals the sexual thing about Ted, and I thought it was going to reveal that Ted was like a rapist or something.
Yeah,
but it didn't.
No.
It was just that he, like any other high schooler, had
They're like it's like this gotcha thing with Ted that I remember just finishing the book and being like, what the hell is going on? Like,
Well, and there are plenty of issues with this book. The fact that all of the women in it are defined by their purity or lack thereof is like maybe at the bottom of the list, but it is an issue. And really, when the class seems to turn on Ted, it's when they find out that he had sex with the virginal white panties girl.
Sandra Cross also. Even the name is kind of,
Which is like, it's just really offensive. It's that somehow he tanks her purity. It just really makes me
Yeah, and I think that what we're touching on here is kind of a nice segue into sort of the structure and format of the book.
Look at me. Look at me, teacher.
Like, one of the things that I think ties into what we're saying is how is how much is how troubling both Charlie's motives are and means of executing them, but also like how much everybody's on board with him. I remember I laughed out loud after his first flashback, which is about his dad. And we'll talk, because I think the structure here is sort of like we get scenes in the classroom and then we kind of get some insight into Charlie's past and his background, and then we kind of come back to the classroom and we see how they're reacting to these stories he's telling. But I remember he tells the story about his dad, and it's a pretty unremarkable story. And when it comes back, I think like
story?
I think Sandra Cross or Carol Granger or one of them is just like, "What happened next?" And it said she asked breathlessly, and it's kind of like, who's going breathless by this story? Like
Dumb campfire story.
I know, and so, but I think that
I've heard my parents say like awful shit before, but it
I mean,
didn't make
the
me...
Cherokee nose job is kind of
Well, and
that is
he's
pretty
also obviously physically abusive. So you add in his dad is physically abusive. It's implied that he's more abusive when he's drunk, and then the idea that he's physically threatening his wife in jest. But you get that other scene where he grabs her so hard that he leaves finger marks on her, and I mean, it's a boring story.
Yeah, but it's just like, I don't know if breathlessness is the response to it.
But also, like, all right, so we're getting in this guy's head, and
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to actually give some sort of reason or impetus for why he has just derailed.
Yeah.
And if there is this situation where he has been abused and he has had these things, which I do believe also, why aren't we seeing that?
Yeah.
Like, why are we withholding details on that? And getting this thing like the campfire situation is interesting, but I have to believe that there are darker stories that are there, and given the stuff that he has already freely shared on there, I mean, the very embarrassing, transparent stuff. Why wouldn't he then also give that too? Because we're in his head for a lot of it too. So why don't we see that? Like,
well, and that's the problem, because I think it's implied that there is even darker stuff going on than the concrete details we're getting. And now, in a more artful book, you could say that, like, if it was a Cormac McCarthy book or something, you would just get it to the point, like, okay, I know something's up here. I'm not going to find out what it is, but that's okay. It's like it's all in subtext, but that's the problem with this. The book is it has such verbal diarrhea whenever he goes into a memory, because he's just going on these monologues essentially about all this shit that happened. It kind of doesn't make sense for him. It's like he goes into the wrong things, I guess, if that makes sense. It's just the way that he goes into each memory is just like what now, Charlie? Like, well, I'll tell you. And then there's like a colon after each thing. Like, I almost picture like just in the like the thing. Yeah.
I think I guess my question is, do we find this structure effective? Because I think for me, like you're saying, he's sitting back, and the implication is that what we're reading is what he's reciting to the classroom.
It's so long. It's
so long, and it's so like articulate, you know. And of course, obviously, like in the world of it, you know, it's probably not word for word what he's saying, whatever. But it's just like, do you think that this means of bloodletting and memory sharing via oration or whatever, like him sharing it that way is the most effective means of exploring this past? Or would this have been better as a longer linear story where we started with him as childhood and we built to the school shooting?
Oh God, please no. I can't. No, not in a million years. I think you can see what he's going for, but I feel like the book completely undermines itself right near the beginning when Ted's like, "Oh, you're gonna blame your parents for you going crazy?" And he's like, "No," and then he does. It just doesn't make any sense. There's one of his flashbacks that I find compelling, and it's only because the girl he's talking about is in the classroom.
Yeah.
When he goes to Carol's birthday party in the suit and he gets beat up. And the only reason it's interesting to me is because I'm reading it, thinking about what it must be like for that young woman in this room to be hearing the story. And when he comes back, they have sort of interplay, and there's a quick throwaway line about how he expected her to tell him to stop, and she doesn't, and at one point she covers her mouth, but that's it. And and then the guy who beat him up is dead, and then he doesn't know he's dead. It's
all the bullies get theirs, and
God, this perfectly harmless football player. It's just so messed up.
I think I don't. Yeah, I agree with Allison. I don't need the life and times of Charlie Decker.
Please no.
But
I want a Netflix series.
oh god, yeah, they should do a miniseries.
8-part Netflix series by the Duffer Brothers of Rage. Yeah, just do that.
They just have one of the kids in Stranger Things grow up to be him. But so I don't need that necessarily. I do think it would be more effective if it was just all in real time and we don't get these entire flashbacks, because this goes to just a problem with horror in general. It's the whole idea of explaining the monster. I mean, the reason those Halloween remakes suck is because they have to explain why Michael Myers is the way he is. Now, Charlie Decker's not on that level because he's a human. He's not like this entity. But I would suspect that a person doing what he's doing, they may have some insight into why they're fucked up, and they definitely have blame. I think they know who they want to blame for it. But I don't think they would have the mental clarity at that point to really break down why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, if you read like you said, Mark David Chapman, I mean, who knows why he is like the way he is? It's not because of John Lennon. It's not because of J.D. Salinger. It's not because of his parents. I mean, maybe those things.
Or John Hinckley Jr. didn't actually try to kill Reagan to impress Jodie Foster. Right?
Exactly, and I think that's the problem with him going into these monologues is that he is like to quote through him, he's playing psychiatrist, and he's actually doing a good job playing psychiatrist because he is analyzing himself. And I think that's the problem with the structure the way it is because when he goes into these stories, he's not just saying like this is what happened. He's saying, well, this is what happened and this is why I am the way I am and this is now. And that's the big issue for me. So I think if it had just been in real time, maybe with not quite as many details, like imagine if it was in real time, maybe even from the first person still, but we don't go into all this backstory and we don't really know why. I think that would have been a much more affecting thing. Once again, there's a reason why there haven't been school shootings inspired by Elephant and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's because they don't make these killers seem charismatic and cool, and I think that's the problem of those flashbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the format and structure he has here, like, would work if he had any grip on what this story was going to do and what it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a problem that I see, and even we're currently reading Night Shift for the next episode, and I'm seeing that in a lot of short stories where I think you have that blank page syndrome where you look at it and you go, all right, let's just go. And you keep going, you're on that momentum, and then you just don't have that sort of, like, how you're going to, like, kind of the skeleton of it, but you really didn't really kind of figure out like how that body is going to look once you start fleshing it out. And I think that this is a total like perfect example of that, and especially a really perfect example because it's clearly was written when he was younger. This structure would have worked if you would have actually just kind of taken some time to really figure out who Charlie Decker is and how you're going to figure that person out without it coming off as so like not just cloying but like perfunctory. Exactly. It's very like oh well, this thing is going to, like, to your point, this is going to uncover this side of him, and this short story is going to talk about his sexual repression, and this thing, it's just like if you were gone full Nelson on just him being a psycho, and you would have had these like things where you have to actually glean a lot of the details versus him telling it to us. Like, that's the mark of, like, I think if he would have written this maybe like actually when this was published, much better story.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Well, and like exactly what you're saying, the idea of the perfunctoriness, because these flashbacks exist in a structural format as a means to justify why he's doing what he's doing, to explain his psychology, and to endear us to him in some sense. And but very few of the stories he tells, he comes from an abusive household, and that is, that makes that has resonance. But some of these stories, he was beat up as a kid one time and kind of humiliated. Like, everyone's gone through that. And then my favorite flashback where he has kind of his first sexual experience. I think that really resonates for me, and I remember it really resonated for me as a teenager because I was a sexually repressed kid who was very awkward and fumbly with women, and so I like related to that. But at the same time, what am I getting out of this?
Well, and that's a pretty normal high school thing to happen. And I guess rage may be, and this is getting in more theme and character, but I guess you could argue that maybe there's something to be said for all the kids talking about sex. Like, maybe that's a hard thing for high schoolers to cope with and deal with and how they're perceived by the community. But once again, I just don't think it has the mastery at that point to deal with those big themes in any kind of meaningful way. Instead, it's more like just you said, like, oh, sex, haha, gross, you're a slut, you're not, all that. And
I mean, none of those girls exist in real life. Not one of
right.
them.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
That's not how women, girls think or talk about themselves anywhere.
Yeah.
The moment when ugly Irma has to admit to the world that she accepts that she's ugly, and then they start trading makeup tips in the back of the classroom is just so absurd.
Along these lines, I think let's continue that by moving into talking about character with a little section we like to call Zeros and Villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Heroes and Villains, or Zeros and Villains, is a section where we like to talk about characters that stand out, that don't stand out, that are confounding or amazing in Stephen King books. So with Rage, who stands out? Like, well, I guess we've talked a lot about Charlie, but let's maybe
Charlie sucks. We all
Charlie
agree, right?
sucks.
Yeah.
We all agree. And we'll probably touch more on him as we discuss the other students. But let's kind of go deeper into the classroom. What characters stand out for good or bad reasons for you guys? Dan?
And we touched on it, but Ted Jones, I'm not saying he's like a great guy, but you do, as an adult, you do like feel for him a little bit because of his problems, and he's never really presented as doing anything that horrible, any more horrible than the average high schooler. And I will say something that I like that King does nail. For instance, if you watch the Rage Carrie 2, the jocks are all like, you know,
comically bad.
Yeah, like these meathead, blonde hair, blue eyes, buff, whatever. Ted Jones I like because he's clean cut, but he's also on the football team. He's more of like a Boy Scout, and I do think that Stephen King nails that archetype pretty well. I feel like that's more accurate to what an athlete, like an all-star athlete guy in a small town would be like.
He also describes him as having greaser hair.
Yeah.
At
weird,
one point,
yeah.
like a pompadour kind of thing, which I think is interesting because one of the subjects that I've been noticing as I've been revisiting Stephen King, especially in Night Shift, and then, I know in later books too, like Henry Bowers and It, but he's really obsessed with sort of the 50s greaser as Bully.
In The Stand, the kid is the same way.
Yeah, he really, those characters that I feel like he must have got picked on by greasers when he was a kid because...
I mean, he went to school in the 50s. So,
because he clearly really dislikes them. Like, and then wasn't kind of... Who was Billy Nolan from Carrie? Was it Billy Nolan?
Billy Nolan. Yeah,
he was like kind of like that too.
He's like
he was a greaser.
Yeah.
Well, should be noted that the book actually started he actually started writing the book in 1966.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking through the compendium, and he was in high school still.
Oh,
and
wow.
then what had happened was he didn't complete it until 1971. So he had to kind of go back and like put in like best-selling books and popular movies of the mid-70s and stuff. But because he wrote it in like the mid-60s, I wonder if that's the reason why like some of the characters kind of have like these sort of like, touches of the past still. Because like, even if you read The Stand, like the updated one, there's still like, references to like Neil Diamond or something.
It still feels like the 70s.
Yeah.
I think Ted Jones... would you guys even consider him a bully, though?
No.
I don't.
No, he seems like maybe he's kind of a douchebag, but most people are when they're that age.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all dicks, and most of the time we don't even realize that we're being dicks.
Exactly, yeah.
Well,
He
it
just seems like
yeah.
a completely average guy who's maybe a little bit good looking and feels a little bit charmed, like certain people do in high school. It's like harmless. He seems pretty harmless, and it is wrong for him to say he is going to wear a condom when he fucks that girl and then not wearing one. That is wrong.
Yes.
You should not do that.
Yes.
That is a violation. But
I didn't do it.
it's a
teacher.
relatively minor one. Like she obviously consented.
Yeah.
So it's like his worst crime is having premarital sex. Unprotected premarital sex and taking care of his family.
Exactly.
How
and
dare he.
that honestly right there is the most realistic notion in this entire book for me.
Yeah.
Was the fact that, I think he kind of shot himself in the foot if he wanted to have himself like, no pun intended, but by putting that characteristic in the thing, because at that point, the fact that he was so selfless, it would be one thing if he didn't do it to stop the if he didn't quit the football team to help his family out or whatever. But the fact that he did, and he clearly was angry at Charlie this entire time because he's the only one that sees the reality of this situation. He's like, this guy is a fucking insane person. He needs to be stopped. Like, what is wrong with you people?
He
like,
says that at the end, right? He's like he killed our teacher, and he's the only one who says that.
And honestly, like, by making him even more of a sympathetic character by just the idea that he quits what he is clearly good at, which was athletics, and especially back then, and even just now. Like, athletics is a ticket for some people for a future, and the fact that he stopped and went to, helped out with his mother and his family, that sympathetic notions made it impossible for the ending of the story to work for me. Because I did not. I actually was like, somebody stop these people from somebody stop them. Like they have to.
Ooh, somebody stop me.
Somebody stop me.
Sorry,
but they had to. I try to avoid it, but it's you just can't fight the mask. The thing is, like, by him having those own admissions, it was impossible for me to care. And
I think when I try to get into the head of what Stephen King was trying to go for with Ted, I think what Ted represents is the establishment, right? Like, he represents the life, the arc, like the life arc that Charlie is trying to avoid. And I think what King is trying to get at with this kind of class of misfits, is that the establishment, that sort of life arc that's not what these people want, and this is a different generation, and these adults, the therapists and the cops that are talking to him over the speakers, these people don't understand what kids really want, and what teenage identity is anymore. And it reminds me, and of course I'm not trying to act like this is correct. I'm saying I think this is what he was going for to a degree, and it reminds me of the 80s film River's Edge with Keanu Reeves and Crispin Glover, which is a movie which is not a great movie, but really interesting in just the way it explores a true story of, kids who find out a friend of theirs killed his girlfriend, who is also a friend of theirs, and instead of turning him in, they try to cover up the murder, and they ultimately can't even articulate to themselves why. It was just kind of a sense of, and it was kind of that Reagan era rebellion, and that idea of, like, we've been numbed inside, we've been numbed to violence, we've been numbed to the things that used to the things that kind of shook our parents to the core. They don't shake us because we're different and we're lost, you know? And I feel like in King's mind with Rage, Charlie is trying to help people discover who they really are and not be beholden to this establishment that Ted Jones represents, because Ted is so dutiful and patient or polite with the authority figures when they talk, and he always has Ted speak to them. And I think when they all descend on Ted at the end, it's supposed to be a sign of, like, rejecting the establishment and rejecting sort of, the lives our parents lived.
And then he's interned at a fucking mental hospital.
He's comatose at the end, right? He's comatose. Like
they're talking about whether or not they're going to have to give him shock treatment.
Oh boy, and it's just.
Where is Chief Brandon when you need him?
It's kind of a leap. I thought that was a leap.
Yeah.
Like this. I get it. Like, your class is turning you to beat you up, whatever. But you're gonna become the ending of a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
It feels really dishonest.
And also,
I'm sorry, this guy has bigger problems than a girl dug her heel into his foot.
Exactly.
If he's 17 years old, or however old he is, supporting his family because his mother has crippling alcohol addiction, he has bigger problems.
Yeah. What do you guys, speaking of like the girls in the novel, we talked a little bit about this already, but I mean, do any of them resonate for you, like Sandra Cross or
no. So I mean, I feel bad for them because they're put in a position that they all have to talk about whether they're virgins or not, or whether they're pure or not,
because don't they say,
or whether they're pretty or not? It really, and then there's the weird thing where Sandra all of a sudden gets like a glittering lizard and is staring off into space and is like, I fucked Ted once. Whatever the fuck. It doesn't make any sense at all. The most compelling moment is when Grace the slut, stands up for herself, and then he completely tanks it by turning it into a Caucasian chalk circle slap fight.
Yeah.
That's right. He makes them
makes them fight each other.
Oh boy.
Mouths and open hands only.
It's funny because when we did The Shining, for instance, and I wasn't here for Salem's Lot, but I listened to it and edited it. There's those books, and it's a bigger cast of characters for Salem's Lot, but even with The Shining, where it's more insular, we had tons of characters. We're like, oh no, that guy's great. Oh, this is cool. I want to talk about this. I'm not joking. Rage, I'm like, I don't know who else I really gravitate to.
I kind of like Pigpen.
Pigpen's kind of good. He's
with
a noble
the pencils guy. And
he had
being pissed about his dirty shirts, and
he had little
his knocked up sister,
ticks that sort of made him stand out at least.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the women, you're so right, and we'll talk about this more in Pound Cake, but it's because I got quotes, but he. And it makes sense to the character in the sense that teenage boys, they do look at women sexually constantly.
They do.
They judge them that way, but it's written in a sense where it's hey, boobs, right? You know, isn't that awesome? But literally every woman is looked at in that way and judged in that way.
And once again, that would not be a problem if, and look, it was the 70s, things are a lot different now, whatever else, but once again, it comes down to that, the hugest problem of the book is that we're not meant to be critical of that element of Charlie. Okay, maybe we're kind of all right, maybe he shouldn't have killed his math teacher.
Relating to him.
Exactly. That's the problem. All the awful things about Charlie are things that the class is relating to. And once again, it's not smart enough to be looking at the class oh no, these kids are all wrong. There's just that little glimmer at the end where Ted Jones really briefly is no, what's wrong with you? He killed someone, but I don't think that's the final thesis of the book. I think that's I don't. I think at the end, I mean, even in the very end, or for instance, at the end of Taxi Driver, where Travis Bickle kills all these people, and he's being lauded as a hero and getting these letters. I've always gotten that's a comment on how sick society can be and how we make heroes out of these people who don't deserve to be heroes, and how we have this obsession with violence. Now, King could have gone that way with Charlie Decker in the end, but when he gets those letters oh yeah, man, everyone's talking about what you did, that's so cool, I don't think that's supposed to be a moment of satire. I think that's just no, I mean, Charlie really did.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got too.
It feels like what he's saying is society has pushed these kids that all they can do to feel alive is turn to this sort of grotesque violence and sex, and that's what they have to do to break free of the chains put on them by people who require them to have jobs. God, I sound so old right now, but
what about the adults? Are you
honestly, I have such trouble distinguishing I said, I confused the therapist and the cop earlier because they're written so
they're all these bumbling
they're just all bumbling morons.
And then Charlie always says something what about you going down your wife? Well, you motherfucker, I'll kill you. Yeah, it's so bad. I don't know, man. I'm feeling like it's a thin here zeros and villains because there's just
a lot of zeros.
I
think you brought up a good point about Charlie's friend, though.
Yes, I was actually about to bring that up. The character that I probably find most compelling is one we never see but hear about a lot, which is Joe McKennedy, right? And that's kind of Charlie's childhood friend who he
writes the letter in the end.
Yeah, and he writes the letter, and we were discussing. You guys reminded me about the letter because I was saying earlier that. It's almost easy to think throughout the story that Joe is somebody who Charlie has grown apart from because Joe seems to have his life together and to be a pretty upstanding, cool guy. When they go to that party together, the women love Joe.
And he gets to date white underpants Sandra.
Oh yeah.
And we know she just gives it away.
She loves it. Going behind the skating rink.
But
it's bowling alley. I can't remember. Yeah.
Well, it's you can tell that Charlie really. I feel like the most human moments I saw with Charlie were kind of the moments when he was in admiration of Joe, and you could tell he really looked up to him, and he really saw him as a good friend. And but I thought it would have been more interesting if the way you do grow apart from people. Some of them, I had friends when I was in school who, whether they got into drugs or they, kind of got a little too much into, I don't even know. Just like stuff that I wasn't into. People grow apart. That's just what happens. And so I thought it would have been very interesting if he talks about Joe like he's his best friend, but they don't really have a relationship anymore. But then you guys reminded me in the end, Joe does write him that letter that's very familiar. And so, again, it just kind of feels like, I mean, I almost don't even like that letter because I like the idea. I like the idea of Joe just being a separate entity, like somebody who exists as sort of this kind of ideal for Charlie.
Well, the way that Joe is presented, the type of guy he is, like you said, he's charmed in the way that Ted is, but without some of the baggage, I think. I almost feel like a guy like that in real life, if that happened, he would probably just distance himself from Charlie. I don't that lettering so false to me. I would either rather have him not at all, be in the end of the book, or the letter. What if the final letter was like telling Charlie, like, what the fuck, man? Why do you do this?
That would have been
I
interesting.
kind of dated Sandra a few times. By the way, she says hi.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Oh,
There's
that's
also
so
this
gross.
one really strange line in the letter, which is, maybe you know what happened to Pigpen. No one in town can believe it. About him and Dick Keene. Following has been censored as possibly upsetting to patients, so you never can tell what people are going to do, can you?
So wait, what is that saying exactly? Then?
Who knows?
Yeah.
I was assuming maybe they were gay.
Yeah.
Maybe, I guess. That's weird,
So-
yeah.
but whatever it is would be upsetting to patient.
And we had also talked about the idea that maybe Charlie was kind of nursing romantic feelings for Joe. Which,
that could be true. Yeah.
I mean, Charlie's kind of a cad throughout, so but he also can't, he's not aroused when he's with the woman on the beach, so maybe he is dealing with some weird repressed sexuality, and he is very wistful when speaking about Joe. So, I mean, that could be interesting, but I don't feel like it's really touched on.
There's another part that's censored. Gracie Stanner, Grace the slut.
Grace the slut.
That cute little chick is
That
going to
cute
get
little
married, and that's also a local sensation. It boggles the mind. Following has been censored as possibly upsetting to patient. Anyway, you can never tell what sort of monkey shines people are going to get up to, right?
Why does he keeps ending all these stories with, and you can never tell.
Oh boy!
I will say this for the characters as a collective, he once again does do a good job of painting the mythology of a small town. I think, like, even in his worst books, I think Stephen King will always be good at that.
Yeah.
Although the characters rank false to me, like, as individuals within the classroom, the world itself... Is it in Harlow? I can't remember. What's the book, or the town that we're in? I think it is Harlow, right?
Do you know, Mike?
Yeah. Either way, I think King does... I think King does do a good job of, okay, it makes sense why these people are in a town together, and when they talk about their memories of the skating rink and whatever else, like, it feels like a real place, even if the people within it don't feel amazing. Yeah,
I'd say that's true. And, I guess, like, if we're just talking about one of the parts I responded to most was I felt like King did a really good job of sort of like painting the picture of the classroom and how hot it was, and sort of like I felt like it was claustrophobic in a very good way. But it's like, and it's so funny to say that that these are bad characters, because like literally in the worst Stephen King books, there's always characters to really glom onto or get excited about.
Yeah.
They can there's always ones that feel a little bit cheesy.
Oh yeah.
But like I think that in this book they don't feel cheesy, they don't feel well drawn. They kind of just feel defined by a few broad factors and inconsistent behaviors. I guess like what really grosses me out is just like it seems like all the like the way he further sexualizes the women is like they all seem like they want to fuck him because he shot the teacher. Like there's a part when he just out of nowhere he looks at Sylvia because the Philbrick says that Charlie's on a hair he's like a hair trigger or whatever, and then he looks at Sylvia and he goes, "Want to pull my trigger?" And then she goes, "Is your safety on?" She asked right back, and the class roared. Anne Lasky laughed with her hands over her mouth, blushing a deep bright red. Ted Jones, our practicing party poop, scowled because Ted is a bad man.
Oh boy.
Anyways, any more thoughts on characters?
Placerville, Maine. Sorry.
Placerville,
Maine.
That's a weird name.
Yeah.
Sluts, am I right?
Oh man.
Any other thoughts on character?
I did think like Pigpen's story about his mother was kind of weird.
What? How so?
Just it goes into like King's thing with like fascination with like these kind of overbearing mothers.
Yeah.
You know?
And abusive
That is
fathers.
such a consistent thing that I never really noticed until I think one of you guys brought up during The Shining. I can't remember.
I think it was The Shining, of Wendy's mother.
Yeah,
But then
it is
Susan's mom and
Susan's mom.
Salem's
Lot.
Lot.
Yeah,
And
there's
then
a thing
obviously
with him.
Carrie Margaret White.
Yeah,
which is funny because like he had a really good relationship with his own mother. So
Yeah.
it's like
And a good relationship. Well, his father kind of was out of the picture, right?
yeah, absentee.
And
yeah.
because he writes a lot about abusive dads.
Yeah.
And
Did anyone else picture Pigpen like Pigpen from Peanuts?
Yes.
or-
Yes.
well, as a longtime Peanuts
You're a
aficionado,
Peanuts scholar.
Love Peanuts. I like the idea that he put Pigpen as a name in here, but don't want to really see Pigpen in the story.
Well, because the problem is because I associate that so much with. I mean, that's a direct Peanuts reference, and it's also like not a. I don't know. It's not an obscure enough nickname to be, interesting to me. I just pictured like this dust cloud in the back of the
Yeah,
class.
I pictured sort of a human boy with a dirty shirt with lines just floating
Stink
around.
lines.
Man.
Also, for being not a bully, why the fuck don't we ever get Pigpen's actual name?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
is he the one that's called an offensive name the whole way through?
Yeah.
I
Poor
do,
guy.
I do think that that there is something to Charlie's fascination with Ted, though, and I think
I
that
think
is
so, too.
Like I really like there. The idea that he has like this. He likens him to a butterfly collector at one point.
He talks about how handsome he is all
He
the time.
always talks about how handsome he is. There's even a line where he says. He goes, "You could see I'm fixed on Ted. Why not? I'm still trying to figure him out." And like, yeah, you could make, he's like, you could make the argument that like Ted's this kind of complex character. I mean, arguably he is the most complex character in this story.
I think so.
So maybe that's Charlie. You could make the argument like, yeah, of course Charlie would be fixated on him, but then you have like the whole like sexual repression that comes into play with his the situation that happens on the beach, and so clearly he has, and then like the sort of sexual connotations of him having to go to the bathroom while his dad was talking about being violent against women. Like there's a lot of like because he talks about how he doesn't want to like pull out his his penis when he has to go peeing and stuff like that. Like I think there's a lot of weird like. Not weird, but just a lot of subtext there about where sexuality could be kind of tied to why he decides to go off on this
And I think that's something that when you're young, it's so hard to articulate.
Yeah.
And obviously he had trouble articulating it because I think you're right in that sexuality is a big factor in why he's doing what he's doing, but the stories he tells still end up being just so
That's the problem.
perfunctory.
It gets submarined by all this other useless crap in the novel, But because I mean, it could be Stephen King's own 16 Blue if he.
I know, right? That's true. Like
if he had had a little more nuance. With
16 Blue is a song off of The Replacements' "Let It Be." A great song. One of the best solos Bob Stinson ever created to recordings.
Guys, I feel like whistling because we're walking by the cemetery.
Ooh.
What's the bottom of the truth? Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
And let's just say that this is going to be in the particular section of the cemetery where they have a lot of grass, and there's no plots yet because there isn't that much to be scared of here other than this writing.
This is the section where we like talk about the scariest parts of the book, the kills that were most disturbing, and things of that nature. And as you can probably imagine, this isn't really a horror novel.
No.
And
it's a thriller, I guess.
I guess it's a psychological thriller.
Yeah, there aren't many traditional horror moments.
When they descend on Ted.
Yeah, but it's like scary for the wrong. It's more scary that Stephen King thinks this is a proper ending. I guess I was a little unnerved by. We talked a lot about Charlie's repressed sexuality. He has that the instance where he can't get it up with that one girl at that party.
That one slut.
That one hippie slut. But then he has a nightmare about, what is it, his mom getting killed or something, and he wakes up with like an erection. And that gave some insight into Charlie, and also, once again, that goes back to this idea that I wish King would have stuck with more, where it's not it's this weird, unexplained thing that he doesn't go too much into. And I think if we had had more of that, it would have been a more effective book. But that was one moment for me that struck out as being.
I'd say the Cherokee nose job story as well, just along those lines of like things that. Images that have been placed in Charlie's head that give you kind of an insight into sort of how fractured his mind is.
Yeah.
You know, that's like kind of something that clearly sticks with him.
But outside of that, though.
I guess it was kind of scary when the bullet shot his heart, and I was worried that
the
he might have
padlock?
died, and then I wouldn't have been able to hear the rest of the story. And I was like, oh my god, like, what's going to happen? We're not going to be able to figure out what happens. Like, Ted's going to get home. Like,
I was a little bit disturbed by two moments. One is when he finally talks about hitting his teacher with the pipe wrench.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
where that's because
very
it
violent.
feels like it just comes out of nowhere. Like, and this is both sort of a positive thing, but mostly a dig, and that it feels a lot like the scene in The Sixth Sense where Haley Joel Osment yells "Stuttering Stanley," right?
Yes.
Only that is a small child,
Yeah.
and it feels honest to an actually tormented child being treated in a pretty inappropriate manner by a teacher, as opposed to a guy being like, "Why do you have this pipe wrench?" And then he gets smashed in the face with the pipe wrench.
Which is a playwright Bruce Norris in The Sixth Sense, isn't it?
Yeah,
Stuttering Stanley?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he wrote Clybourne Park, Pain in the Itch.
All right.
And his stuttering comes back in that scene too, because he's like,
What?
"Shut up, you freak!" Like,
the other moment that got me is when they all descend on Ted. There's a specific description of, I think it's Carol, one of the girls, digging her heel into his foot, and you hear something snap.
that was gross.
Yeah, that's kind of gross, yeah.
That really, and then he starts calling him Ted Thing because he's just laying there.
That's kind of creepy, yeah.
So that got me.
The pipe wrench moment, the thing that did kind of jar me a little bit in a good way was because remember he keeps hitting the chalkboard when he swings it back.
Yeah.
That was
chunks
like
are flying out.
Yeah, that was really unnerving to me, and once again I think that's scary because Charlie doesn't give a full monologue about why he did that. He was just kind of like, I came to school with this wrench, I did it, and that was it. He's not like, oh well, sit back and I'll regale you with a tale of why I did this.
there was a point where I was absolutely like nervous that he was going to shoot Irma.
Yeah,
Like,
there were a
that's
couple
point where
moments
he's
like
just
that,
he does the line of questioning, and I was like, oh my god, is this going to be when it turns and he's going to shoot this kid? And like, and then the kids are still not going to be shocked at this. But that was the only point where I was actually like flipping the pages, like, oh my gosh, what is it? Where is this going to lead? And then it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And that was really the only time I felt tense because, and again, the problem is because I never believe any of this is real. Like, it doesn't feel real to me. Like, I managed to. And one thing I did actually wanted to present as a question is, like, did you guys like picture your own school, like in high school for this?
Actually,
I
didn't.
I didn't either.
I actually had a particular classroom. I had the teachers that I imagined. I don't know what that says about me, but there was like, because the idea of like being like the line of like windows and being able to see the lawn, like there was like. That I did picture that, and like that was kind of jarring.
I also
in a weird way.
I went to a lot of schools in Florida are like this. My high school was kind of outside almost.
That's same here.
It didn't. So I didn't have, but we didn't have a lot of. It
our
wasn't
hallways were outside.
Exactly. Yeah. So I actually know what I pictured. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was more like the classroom in Halloween where Laurie is sitting there and she sees Michael Myers out. I think because the book, and this is one other thing I did like about the book, like you said, it does seem very late 60s, early 70s to me, and so I think I whenever I think of 70s schools, I think of that thing of just like the very blackboard here, wooden desks, like with maybe the old like silver like rolling out the windows with the screens. Oh yeah, exactly. The pencil sharpener you had to crank and all that.
And picture the classrooms from X-Men.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Wait, really?
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right.
I didn't, until you brought it up, I didn't realize it, but I think I was picturing the classrooms from 11/22/63.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
fresh in my mind. Not when he's teaching in the present, but when he's teaching in the past.
I need to watch 11/22.
I really did. I did struggle
James
with trying
Franco
to,
is surprisingly good at it.
like
Love
just
Frank.
coming up with the reality of this and trying to figure out. It's so easy for us for at least in the previous books that we've read so far, being able to come up with the setting and then the characters and seeing these things interact. And for me, one of the reasons why I'm very slow with reading sometimes is because I sit there and I try to picture it and I'm like putting everything in place, like even the little small things. in this book, I definitely leaned on some of the stuff from like my high school like experiences and stuff. But even outside that, it's so hard to actually believe any of this is happening because it's so just removed from any reality. You know, we've seen, because the problem is it's the same thing that Justin has. He's a fellow loser on the Losers Club. He has a problem watching like the People versus O.J. Simpson because he lived it.
Yeah,
like, he saw that happening on the news channels.
And he was old
enough to really understand it. And that's kind of the problem I have with this book, is because we were all old enough to know that how Columbine happened. We saw it live on TV. We saw the Sandy Hook things happen. We saw these other things happen. Like, I don't think we need. I think because we've had those real life experiences, and this is so far removed from any of the any like sort of reaction to that. I mean, we've seen live footage of kids running away from the shooters because of the Columbine things like that happened. We've seen the security monitors happen. We know that the kids aren't going to be sitting here and
we know how a classroom acts when something like this happens. And
for me, that's why this book was never scary or never anything, because I was like, none of this could even be conceivably real.
Well, whenever you hear about a school shooting in real life, even though the circumstances surrounding them have all been very different, like Sandy Hook was way different than Columbine as far as the planning and the, how it went down and all that. But the one consistent thing you hear from all these shootings, you never hear about like kids leaving other kids behind or siding with the shooters or just sitting there. The one consistent thing is that you always hear about these acts of bravery of kids and teachers kind of escaping and fighting back against this, and some of them don't make it, and that's really sad.
Yeah, the moment that feels most dishonest in the whole book to me is when the girl goes to the bathroom and then comes back.
Exactly.
Oh
because it seems to me that King is trying to say that maybe there's some sort of, like, the most charitable interpretation of that bullshit is that there's a kind of Stockholm syndrome happening, but it's just not justified at all.
No,
there's no way that girl comes back. Come on, he's got a gun.
They're
all going nuts. There's no way she comes back.
Oh man. No. I have a question for you guys. So, like I said, the version of the Bachman Books I have, when they did it's the paperback version of the one Mike has, they published the original covers, the Bachman covers, in the front of each story. And as we always discussed before, the Rage one it's a desk, and you see the teacher's dead legs coming from off camera. And then Charlie's sitting there, with this smirk on his face. So pull it up,
He's looking I have cool the Wikipedia.
And so, and his face looks so punchable, and he looks like such a smarmy douchebag. So, and he looks so 70s. He's got his, it's awful. He looks.
Who wants to talk next?
Fuck you, Charlie.
Seeing that in my Bachman Books edition, I just picture him like that, and it made me hate him even more. I'm like, fuck this guy, he sucks, and it was just.
I want to say, all right. So this was published in the '77. I cannot remember the name of the goddamn movie, but there's a 70s film where kids they take over the school. It was in the Montage of Heck documentary.
The Wave? Is it The Wave? Or no?
I don't know. It was which?
Taps?
It might be Taps.
Tom Cruise? Is Tom Cruise in it?
No,
it's like
Tom
a military
Cruise. No. It's like a high school that gets taken over by kids, like
Toy Soldiers?
All the kids, this is like in the 70s. Love Toy Soldiers also.
Yeah.
The guy from Gordon from Sesame Street's in it.
Oh really? I think
so.
I think we need to start a podcast about it.
But they also have Sean Astin and Gordy, whatever. We're not going off on Toy Soldiers.
Over the edge?
It might be Over the Edge.
Oh yeah, I think it is. I actually think it is Over the Edge.
Does this look right?
That might be it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I just remember seeing it in like the
Matt
Kurt
Dillon.
Cobain, Montage of Heck documentary.
Yeah, is Matt Dillon in it? I feel like Matt Dillon has a lot of...
It was Matt Dillon's film debut.
Oh, it might be then. It might be. It was just like this idea that, in Rock and Roll High School, the Ramones thing is also similar. Of this like, kids are gonna band together and they're gonna take over the whole thing. And it's like that's
a very the way the kids talked, it was such the 70s thing of like, yeah, man, can you dig it? We're kids. We're not going to take this shit.
Parents just don't understand.
Oh, it's so lame. And that's lame on its own. And then throw this thing of like a cool school shooter in there.
Well, and just like, we haven't really touched on this, but just, the book was originally called, you mentioned it, like Getting It On. And Charlie just says so many times, he's like, well, this, my friends, is called Getting it on.
And doesn't at one point the principal ask, "What's getting it on?" They say something like "sticking it" or something.
Oh, it's so bad.
We have one thing left to do. We have to get it on.
On that note, I think it's time to serve up a little dish of what I like to call pound cake.
After all you've been taught, everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin. Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven. He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
This is a section where we like to kind of just poke a little fun at moments in Stephen King books that, where things maybe got a little blue, is one way to phrase it.
I'm eating an Oreo while we're doing this. Not actual pound cake, but
a red velvet Oreo. And I love velvet.
And then I think that I think that where a lot of this manifests is just in kind of the rampant sexualization that Charlie has.
The treatment of
the
sex,
women.
not the actual
And the
language.
treatment of sex, which is really gross. Here's just, we're just going to kind of talk about a few examples, but I've got a few selections I'm just going to read right here. Talking about Ted Jones, he sees Irma looking at Ted, and he says, "And I bet his was the face that Irma Bates called up in her mind when she sneaked a cucumber out of the refrigerator in the wee hours of the night." It's like, and I remember reading this going, completely unnecessary. Like, he totally, I'm just saying, it's like, that line is gross, but he also says it for no reason.
Also, all right, if you want to imply that, fine. First off, why can't it just be like, "Oh, I suspected that, like, she had a thing for him," or she fantasized about him, or this. Why a cucumber in the middle of the night? Like, I'm just jonesing for it. I could just sit here and do it. No, I'm gonna go grab a fucking cucumber. Ugh.
Note, pretty clear evidence that a young Stephen King had absolutely no idea how women masterbate.
I was gonna say, I don't think using a cucumber is like, that's so, and I love to. And
I've seen it in a bunch of comedies. Maybe like Rob Reiner comedy.
Spinal Tap. He puts the cucumber in his pants to simulate.
Well, this one time at band camp, nah.
A cucumber.
Here is a sign of like a line that Stephen King probably wrote when he was 17 that he just never really edited out. When he's on the beach with the woman, I could feel her bare thigh. I began to get horny as a bull moose.
Bull moose?
What the fuck?
What about the obsession? I mean, we've already noted that he's obsessed with breasts, as Elaine Bennis would say. But he loves. I gotta say, when he's up there on the typewriter, he absolutely loves cardigans with breasts. Like it's such a repetition at this point that
who doesn't? Come on.
I love cardigans, and I like the band Cardigans better than
Cardigans had popularity in the 70s, right? I don't know. It was the 70s.
Yeah, I guess it's it's a thing, but it's just it's like the recurring thing. It's I know we all have our own vices and stuff, but it's very interesting to see him continue to go with it. And he always talks about the size of breasts too. Like, as if this has any sort of
like in Carrie. Like in Carrie, I remember every single female character. Even the smallest ones have to have the size of their breasts described.
Yeah, oh, man. It just doesn't make sense.
Some are big, some are small. He's got to talk about it.
No reason.
Stephen King, he loves them all.
That's exactly.
And then I've got another quote here. Speaking of breasts. Grace the slut. Grace looked at the class, then looked at me. Her breasts were very full, pushing at the soft fabric of her sweater.
Why would he be saying that?
And then he also does it with Sylvia too. I didn't write it down, but it's like he talks about how big her boobs are.
Maybe
too.
the horny as a bull moose thing. Going back to that. I don't know. Are there a lot of moose in Maine? It's the vacation state.
Are bull moose a thing? I've never heard of.
I think a bull moose would be like a male moose, like the bull. But I don't.
We all know men get the horny.
Do you have my favorite Grace line in your roundup there?
I don't think I do.
What's that?
My mom fucks and I love her.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
My mom fucks.
My mom fucks.
And I love her.
I mean, he can't even talk about the fire chief without going. They stood irresolutely. Oh, fuck it. They stood irresolutely. Whatever. He talks about the fire chief and how their nozzles were gripped and held out before them like comic brass phalluses. You could have said they're holding fire hoses.
They look like dongs.
Yeah, just seems.
Oh man.
And then I got another good one here. Well, this is one that just kind of pisses me off. He was. It's when he told us a story we were talking about earlier about him going to the Carol Granger's party, birthday party when they were young, and when he comes out of it, he says the shame on her face was alarming, talking about Carol and how he had just told this story, and and she's so sorry, and he says, I hadn't told that story to shame her, and she goes, I was just a kid, Charlie, and he goes, I know that, I said, and smiled. You were awfully pretty that day. You sure didn't look like a kid.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
There's also a line in that section about how, because he was 12, so she was presumably also 12, about how she looked 15 or 16 already because she was already filling out.
It's just like he has no reason to say that except to be a complete fucking lech. Like, you were awful pretty that day. You sure didn't look like a kid. Like, why are you saying this to her, like, when she's 16 years old? Like that's really creepy.
It's interesting in
and
Rage.
it's not presented in a way where it's supposed to be creepy.
It's interesting in Rage because there's not as much in the moment sex stuff like there was in Salem's Lot and The Shining with seed drying on thighs or whatever else. But it's more the teenage gaze, I guess. Which once again, if the book was subversive and commenting on that could be one thing, but it's really not. I think you brought up a good point, Randall. He started writing this book in high school, and I think a lot of that is residue. Ew, no pun intended. Left over from his 17-year-old mind.
It's just very curious to me how literally the whole last third of the book just really becomes about shaming Ted. Like really aggressively so, and in the process, and like I really like what you were saying just about like the virginal aspects of like Sandra and like talking, and then you were talking about like he talks about her panties all the time.
Oh yeah, her white panties.
Her white panties.
He fantasizes about her white panties, and then because he didn't ask her to the winter formal, she went with Ted instead. And that's where he actually thinks about shooting Ted, because Ted got it on with white pants Sandra.
Yeah.
And
right? And then she wears a sheer blouse and her shortest skirt, and she goes to the roller rink to get fucked, and then has an orgasm from apparently just the thought of sex.
Yeah. Wait, all right, so I had a question about that part, because the way he phrases that is really weird. She says... Oh, and before he even got in, he just like rubbed on my thigh, and I went. She says it like I went.
She peed.
Yeah, well, no, that's what I thought at first.
Oh, I don't think so.
No, I think you're right. Like,
I think that she comes, and then he does too, and he says you did it on purpose.
I think that's like accurate. But maybe I'm really naive. Have you guys, is that a 70s thing, like, oh, and I went, like, I don't know, that just sounded like a funny...
I just like the idea of, like, I went pee-pee.
No, it was just a weird way to phrase it. By the time I got to the end of the passage, I was like, oh, okay, I see what you meant.
Sure.
But I had to reread it for a second, like, wait, what?
I think that, I actually think if you portrayed Charlie as a total creep, and he was saying, I wanted to kill Ted because he got to bang the girl that I fantasize about, that's a very honest thing.
Yeah.
But you're not, it's like, in The Stand, that's what Harold is. Harold wants to kill Stu because Stu is with
And Harold
Franny.
is criticized
And
in the
Harold
book.
is a villain in the book, and like, well, that's presented as being like, well, that's awful, you know? And because that's, grown up, assured, good writer king. And here I think this is still like, a man who is not fully in control of his emotions and wanting to hate people for getting the thing that they feel they're entitled to.
It's
neck
weird.
And for soiling the good girl.
Yeah, soiling the virginal.
Because, by the way, if you have sex and you're a woman, and it's not with whatever man is supposed to be the good one, that means you're a dirty whore.
Well, my mom fucks, but I still love her.
Yes.
I mean, we've got some extraneous ones here I want to point out.
Mike loves pound cake.
They love pound cake, but I didn't. Sadly, I was borrowing Sir Justin's copy of the Bachman book, so I couldn't underline it because he would get angry at me. But so I'm rummaging through some of the paragraphs. There's some really weird ones. Like he discusses the adults outside. He says, out in the lawn, the cops and Tom Denver and Mr. Johnson were standing around restlessly, waiting for the return of their Tweety Bull stud. Read my dreams, Sigmund. Squirt them with the sperm of symbols and make them grow. Show me how we're different from, say, rabid dogs or old tigers full of blood. Show me the man Show me the man hiding between my wet dreams.
I can imagine him writing that in his dorm room and being like, babe, Tabby, you gotta hear this.
And also later on he goes, Mr. Gray sounded like a very small child, helpless, hopeless. I had made him fuck himself with his own big tool, like one of those weird experiences you read about in the Penthouse Forum. I had taken off his witch doctor's mask and made him human, but I didn't hold it against him. To err is only human, but it's divine to forgive. I believe that sincerely. And like, you know,
God, what an asshole.
and like there's a part where the part where he's talking to him, he unbuttoned my shirt cuffs, like, I'm gonna go to business. Like
seriously,
I hate this guy.
He just thinks that he's enlightening everybody and that he's schooling everybody. And that's my main problem with the book, is just that the criticism levied towards Charlie is so slight that like we're really supposed to be on his side here. It's such a balance of like what makes a good writer and what makes a great writer. You know? And King just wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
Like, obviously we are huge fans of him, but man, this is a bad book. And it's amazing to me that he was comfortable with it being published.
Yeah, well, and then eventually I think he made the right choice.
Well, I think so too.
Yeah.
Any other pound cakes that we want to share?
You know,
There's the one reference to how her pubic hair was 9 shades darker than her bleach job. Remember that one? That one is the hippie beach slut, by the way, for those of you tracking the sluts
in the
at home.
short dress.
Yes. Hippie beach slut.
You know, I'm sorry, constant listeners, but I just don't have them underlined this time.
I think we had
you
plenty
know,
of
I think
pound
we got
cake.
some stuff.
Yeah, I had plenty of pieces of pound cake.
Everyone had a bite.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Let's move on to King's Dominion.
There's another world out there. I know there is.
This is usually the section of the show where we talk about the way that stories sort of connect to the larger universe of Stephen King. As we all know, The Dark Tower connects many Stephen King books. And so here's a question. Is Rage connected to any other King works?
I don't know if it's connected to the bigger universe other than that Dark Tower technically connects all Stephen King books, but there are little things that I noticed. For instance, Charlie Decker has a poster of Rita Hayworth in his locker, which obviously comes into play later on. Now, that's just a shared detail.
Sure.
There are other things. I mean, there's some similar names. We already touched on the teacher Underwood. His last name was Laird Underwood in The Stand. I just realized Sandra Cross is also is she a relative of Nadine Cross? Who knows?
Interesting.
There are some towns that are mentioned, although as we said earlier, this does not take place in Harlow, but they mention Harlow, which is in Under the Dome and a few other books.
What if in the Castle Rock trailer when they were like doing the thing, like saying all the like Danny Torrance,
Charlie Decker.
Yeah, Charlie Decker.
You're like, wait, I don't recognize that.
Wait,
I feel like that line in Wayne's World is like African American Digest. I don't recognize that. It won several awards. I do have one more.
Yeah.
Or have one that also is interesting. According to our favorite book by Stanley Wyatter, Christopher Golden, and Hank Wagner. Oh, Hank, like your dog.
Hank, my dog. Cujo.
The complete Stephen King universe. They say, Charlie's father admires the crime novels of Richard Stark. That name is, in fact, a pseudonym of one of King's favorite writers, Donald E. Westlake. King, of course, was using Bachman as a pseudonym to write Rage. Later in his career, King would write The Dark Half.
Yes, I thought about
in which
this.
Author Thad Beaumont uses George Stark as a pseudonym. So there's kind of a loosely...
Yeah, I actually Googled it because when I saw Stark, I was like, wait a minute, is that the name used in Dark Half? But then I saw George Stark.
Yeah.
But still,
Yeah, and so, I think it's... And you know, this was written so early that any writer's going to have similar things in their work, but I think it was probably before Stephen King was really plotting out how his various books are connected, because that was it the Wastelands where they first really explore that with the parallel Stand universe. So once again, I mean, Stephen King being a character in The Song of Susanna connects all King books, but other than a few little details, I don't think Rage has a ton. Does he mention is Ludlow the town that Carrie takes place in? I can't remember.
No. I thought it was Chamberlain.
No, you're right. Yeah, and so you hear some towns mentioned, and then there's the...
Well, and I think that isn't the asylum in Bangor?
It is in Bangor, yeah, that is right. So I guess like that means this is in proximity to most of the small town, the suburbs of Bangor, essentially, yeah.
Well, there's also that weird section in Rage when like Roland walks in. It's like, hey, what's going on, guys?
He's like, I'll show you how to shoot. He blows off Charlie Decker's head.
Give me back my gun.
What if King did like a re-released one? That's how he ended it. He just has Roland come in and shoot Charlie and be like,
I would love it.
Good character.
I'd love
Well, on that, have any of you read, I think it's called Guns, the essay that
he wrote an essay, and Stephen King, I think, very perturbed by all the gun violence and maybe the fact that in the tiniest of ways that he inspired a few people to to do those sorts of things. He wrote an essay in 2013 called Guns.
Was that the one written in light, or I guess
After
it was
Sandy Hook.
After Sandy Hook, and he wrote one after Virginia Tech also, when that killer's short stories came out, and he had brought up what you said before about if someone had read Rage when I was in college, they probably would have deemed me mentally ill. But I have not read that one.
Wikipedia says Guns is a nonfiction essay written by Stephen King on the issue of gun violence. He wrote it after the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting, elaborating on why he let the novel Rage and the Bachman Books, the omnibus in which Rage also appeared, go out of print. It was a Kindle single, and all profits from Guns will benefit the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, you could tell this is definitely something that he's remorseful about. Like that this is, out in the world.
I mean, can you even imagine you create something that seems innocuous to you and it goes on, indirectly to in some way fuel someone's violent insanity?
One, King is also, even from the beginning, King has always been a moralist. And I think sometimes to his detriment in certain books, he's very morally black and white. He has complex characters, but I feel like we always know who we're supposed to be rooting for, which is both a strength and a weakness. And so, none of us know Stephen King personally, but I think it's safe to say he seems like he's a very good person. He seems to have genuine compassion for people. I mean, you can tell that by his writing. So yeah, I can only imagine how a guy like that would be affected. Now, if it were like Brady Snellis or someone, I don't know. And once we don't know him either, but I think there are other writers who, even in the wake of all these school shootings, would have been like, no, that's not my problem. It's art. People interpret it however, but I do think that there's something to be said for how Stephen King.
And I think that this really speaks to a big part of where art is at in culture today, where it's like, we understand the influence that certain topics and certain pieces of art can have on people, and that's led to a certain cautiousness in the creation of art, which is both justified but also limiting.
Well, yeah,
and it's something that I think we're all trying to navigate right now.
You have bands like Viet Cong changing their name, which was very controversial on both sides, because some people are like, what are you doing? Gang of Four didn't change their name, and it's a similar thing. But at the same time, it's also tough. I mean, Stephen King also had the luxury of being able to pull Rage when he had already gained his level of fame. He wasn't going to lose anything by that. No. And it's hard now with the way art is created, because if, I used to be very on the side that Viet Cong should not have changed their name. But then I talked to some other people that were like, it's also hard, though, if you're that band. Like, they're not a famous band. They're not making a living at it. What do you do if all these people are clamoring for this? And it's a tough thing, and I think it's only gotten tougher with how much information we're able to get at just instantaneously. Like, imagine if Stephen King had written Rage these days before he was a famous writer, which he did write before he was famous, but if it had gotten released under his own name before he was famous, I feel like it would be career suicide almost, Absolutely. Yeah. He had the luxury of how this came out to be able to pull it because he had a degree.
This is the kind of story that I feel like most writers have in their pocket, but they don't release it.
Oh, we all have stuff we're ashamed of writing. I have stuff that I have live journal entries that I think are probably still online that I would be embarrassed for other folks to see them, and they probably even have viewpoints that I would consider atrocious.
I think I deleted my live journal.
I probably should.
I deleted mine also.
I should, yeah.
Well, constant listeners, if you want to find Dan Caffrey's live journal out there, he has the user profile photo is Alan Shumper from
Wet Hot American
Summer. So
don't worry, Mom. I know all about cannibalism. I saw it on TV.
See? It's okay. You saw it on the television.
This is usually where we move to talk about adaptations of work. I think with most King, there's usually multiple adaptations of the work.
A Dollar Baby or something.
Yeah, but there really isn't anything for Rage that we found. So I think we're just going to do a fun little experiment and ask ourselves, if we were going to make a movie of Rage, which we're not, who would we cast? Who would be, maybe from... I guess we can think about it whether they made it in the 70s or now. Like what actors come to mind? Who would be Charlie Decker?
Let's start with the 70s. If this is the 70s, who's playing Charlie Decker in the 70s?
It's tough, man.
A young Brad Dourif.
Ooh, that's actually not bad. I think you also have to consider what would you be trying to do with this adaptation, because if it's us having the hindsight that we do with this book, I think the difference you would want to make in the movie is, compared to how the text is laid out, is that you would want to highlight that we are not condoning this. Charlie Decker is a piece of shit. And I think you can still do that while still being true to the novel. I think you can adjust the tone of it. So I think you need to have someone who you could see why kids would be into him, but would be very clear to the audience that they're horrible. And I think Brad Dourif actually might be
Love
good.
Brad Dourif.
Yeah.
I've been rewatching Deadwood, so he's in my head. lately.
Yeah. I think Brad Dourif, yeah.
Yeah,
But I want old Brad Dourif from Deadwood.
Playing a kid. Maybe
A young Bruce Greenwood.
Young
hey,
Bruce
why not?
Greenwood.
Yeah.
That's like what.
Well, no, he'd have to be Ted.
He'd be
That's
Ted
what-
Jones, yeah.
He's got that job.
Oh
Ted
yeah,
Jones.
he's a hunk.
If-
But the whoever's on the cover of the Bachman Books sitting on the desk is kind of a
Man.
hunk too.
Well, that made me think, and it's because he already came up once, but that made me think of a young Matt Dillon.
Ah.
He
yeah.
had that like 70s
Bad boy
hair,
Dylan?
wavy
Yeah.
hair.
And he Matt Dillon is charismatic, but can be like an asshole really well.
Oh
too.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Kevin Dillon also. Yeah, I think either
Kevin Dillon.
either
Get
the
outta
Dillon
here.
boys.
The Dillon boy.
Wait, no joke. I know you guys are gonna laugh at it because of his current standing in society. Young Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Even the way he
yeah.
looks, he
'Cause he's-
looks
Oh, yeah.
young Charlie Sheen, like pre-platoon Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
He looks like that Charlie on the front of the book, and also he was someone else who was very good at being.
and he would have been that age too.
He would have, yeah, because Platoon he's only in his early 20s.
Yeah,
right?
so
yeah.
because you still need a high schooler. So
Yeah.
like, you know.
And then maybe Emilio Estevez.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we could do
As
it. Why don't we
Ted
just
Ted
use
Jones.
the whole cast of The Breakfast?
I know. I was
yeah.
thinking the same thing.
I mean, I personally would have gone with Dreyfus.
Yeah.
For
Richie
you know,
D?
for Charlie.
Man.
Oh,
He comes in, you know, like right off of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know, he comes in and plays like a high schooler. I think that'd be great. Are you kidding me?
Oh, man.
No. I think it's hard because I don't really know a lot of the kids around like the 70s because I'm trying to think of like kids from like Halloween, but I think they would still look too old.
Bob from Halloween.
Yeah, Bob from Halloween. Yeah.
I think the biggest
Yeah.
problem is that I would hope that most of the actors that I think are good would read the story and go, "Fuck no,
Yeah, exactly.
no fucking way."
But to Dan's point, I really do think you can use this and make an actual story.
I think you
a
could,
film out of it.
I think if you took someone, if you went minimalist with it and you only use dialogue from the book, but maybe you don't see the flashbacks, you just make it in real. I mean, hell, even if you filmed it in the way that something like Elephant is filmed. I know I keep bringing it up, but you know,
I would give it to Linklater.
Yeah, Linklater would be good. I think
he would be good for it. I think that, oh man, you know what? It's crazy, but like, he's too old for it now, maybe. But I think I feel like Jesse Eisenberg would have been a perfect Charlie Decker.
Yeah,
because you can do you like look at like if you watch like Social Network, like
but you can't hate him.
Like you hate him in that movie,
but you want to watch him. Though,
but you're
too.
still obsessed with what he's going to do next. And I feel like he would have been a great Charlie Decker.
I like the idea of Linklater just because I'm thinking about his period in the
Slacker?
90s. Well, no, like his period in the 90s when he was adapting a lot of plays.
Oh yeah, like Tape or something.
Tape and then Suburbia, because he made Suburbia. Suburbia is a play, the Eric Bogosian play. And I love Eric Bogosian. Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, what up? But no,
like
Suburbia.
Dan Bogosian, shout out.
Suburbia is a play that I loved when I was young, kind of like how I liked Rage when I was a teenager. And then I saw a play version of it, and it was awful because whoever plays,
I had the same experience.
Yeah, and then but then you watch the movie, the Linklater movie, and I think it's pretty great because what Linklater understood was that the main character only works if he's full of shit.
Exactly.
If you know, like Giovanni Ribisi plays him like a loser. The production of the play I saw played him like he was enlightened, and there was the same dialogue.
Yeah.
And if you played Charlie Decker like he was a monster.
Oh, it'd be great
using the same language. I think that it would be a different kind of story. I mean, of course, you'd have to change other details.
I'm playing full producer's chair right now. I'm going right in the producer's chair.
Mike's got sunglasses on.
You get the kid stays in the picture.
2008 era Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Mid 90s Linklater.
Yeah.
2010 Sorkin.
Screenplay. I think if you took Linklater and Sorkin and then did both Jesse Eisenberg and Andrew Garfield. That could actually be really interesting.
Cool. I mean, I think Garfy is a total hunk, so I could see him as a Ted Jones. I like that idea.
Plus, that would go ahead and make him the most sympathetic character in the story.
yeah,
which is
absolutely.
We get Bud Cort to play the principal.
Bud Cort.
Yeah, well,
Bud Cort.
I think that's great. That's
Oh,
great.
and can Stephen Root be the psychologist?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's perfect. Yeah.
Great.
I'm watching this movie.
I gotta say, I think that might be that could possibly be one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever.
That's a bold statement.
It is because it's elevating the text. I like the adaptations that make the story better.
One, hey man,
And, like-
you know, if you think about something like Fight Club, like I think Fight Club, the book or the movie, is an improvement upon
It's
the
a
book.
better-
You know, there's
yeah.
I think it would just come down to tone. I think if you have a director and a writer who are aware of the faults of the book and how to use that to the film's advantage, I think that'd be good. Yeah, you would have to get past the challenge of. I mean, I know we're talking in dream world right now, but I mean, I don't even know if King would want it to be
No,
done.
he wouldn't want it. He wouldn't want it.
I know not all of his books have been movies by this point by a long shot, but I do feel like most of his books have at least been in development at some point, or like someone has optioned the rights to them. Has that even ever happened with Rage? I've never read anything about
I
it.
imagine he doesn't, but here, that gives me a good idea. You know, we talked earlier about how this is King when he's younger, not as skilled as he is in the 70s and such. What if the adaptation, Sorkin's worked with other people too. Let's say he pairs with Sorkin and is able to rewrite this story like in the right way. And it's like
That
a
would be
redemption for King to kind of get out there and do it.
And that's a rare thing for a writer for him to recognize this early novel is shit. I know the right moral compass to put into it now. I know the right way to make it an effective book.
And I don't mean redemption, the fact that I'm sitting here going like, oh, shame on you, King. I'm thinking for his own personal redemption.
Exactly.
It's clearly based on what, Allison just shared the Guns nonfiction essay. Clearly something that still resonates with him. This is a way for him to come back and say, look, we're going to put this right. He's going to make some money off it.
Yeah,
I didn't mean, maybe you could donate some money to
Brady campaign.
Yeah,
Brady campaign, yeah.
Exactly.
Uncle Steve, if you're listening, I know you've been listening this whole time and just haven't spoken up yet. But,
Look, if they're gonna make a Bachman book into a movie, it's gotta be A Long Walk.
Oh yeah,
I actually really like The Long Walk.
Especially Springsteen's doing the score for it.
It's gonna be a long walk home.
I mean, I think that wraps it up for the adaptations.
Yeah.
I'd say now let's cap this off with some overall thoughts.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
I think we've all been clear about our thoughts of the novel. Do you guys have any final things?
I mean, I'd say my final thought is that this is the work of a young, emotionally developing, confused, talented writer who was not ready to write about these subjects yet and needed to write this more for himself than an audience. And for that reason, I feel like it really never should have been released. So I give this, on a scale of 1 to 5 red Pennywise clown noses, I give it a 1 clown nose.
Ooh, yeah, just a single one floating there in the
sewer.
Yeah,
just floating in the sewer.
I also give it a single red clown nose that you then put on the floor. And then some slut digs her heel into it, and you hear something break inside the clown
Like
nose.
there's like little bones inside the clown.
Yeah, like you hear, and then they call it clown nose thing for the rest, and then the clown nose gets shock therapy. That's
and when they
what I
love
give
the
it.
idea of a little clown nose in like a table with like little electric, like giving it shock therapy, and it's
And a bunch of
bouncing
doctors.
around.
I
There's like one with a
also,
clipboard.
if we've inspired any young filmmakers out there to somehow, for some reason, make a movie of Rage, I would like to go ahead and request that you just cast all the women with the same woman, since they're all basically the same character anyway.
That would be a really
and then Irma, and then you cast someone else because she's the dog. I don't know
Yeah.
if you picked up on this, but she's the ugly one.
Oh, man.
So like just nothing but Tatiana Maslany, and then one other random horse face.
And
Tatiana's coming out soon with the other half. Can't wait.
The other half? What's that?
It's a movie that came out last year at Chicago Film Critics.
Is it good? It's
good.
Pretty good. Yeah. Go on a tangent, but yeah. Shout out to Tatiana.
And also when that clown nose gets stepped on, there's a little hedge line inside that says "Watch it."
I love those hedge
shining
animals.
callback. Yeah, I'm going to give it one bright red Pennywise clown nose. I'm going to throw a half clown nose in there because of King's later perspective on it. I think there's something to be said for that. And,
Sure.
And the fact that he's...
Maybe I give his response to its existence as a human being like 4 clown noses.
Yeah.
But the story itself.
That's a good way to put it. So, yeah. I'm not going to break it up this time. Let's go with one.
All right.
One bright red Pennywise clown nose.
Yeah, I'm going to go with one also.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty
Harsh
critical with some of these stories, but this one, I mean, you could conceivably go even lower than that, but it opens up the argument. I mean, like, look, we've spent the last 2 hours. I don't know how long we've actually spent on it, but we've even longer than that. But we've had a great discussion about something that is clearly a problem in our culture, and I think that if that creates that dialogue, great, and I think that's worth the red nose, alone.
Well, and is it safe to say, and who knows, maybe we're forgetting about something, and maybe as we go on, we'll discover something that's worse. I mean, I think it's probably my least favorite Stephen King book.
It's definitely mine.
Easily.
Yeah, mine too.
It's probably his too, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the Duma Key is pretty bad, but
Duma Key's good.
Oh, it's not good. Not good.
Stand by it. Well, great. As we close, I just want to share one last little piece of info I found is that used copies of the first printing paperback for Rage, they sell for anywhere between $700 and $2,000.
What is wrong with you people?
It is on BookFinder. This is in 2014, but on BookFinder.com's list of the 100 most sought after out of print books, Rage is ranked higher than any other novel at number 2 overall.
Wow.
Shit.
What are the other Bachman books ranked as? I mean, I know Rage is out of print, so
I mean, maybe the individual. No, because you can still get Long Walk. Like, I had an individual copy
Did you
of
really?
Long Walk. I had both the Bachman books and an individual copy.
I don't have the
of
first
Long
edition, but I have an individual.
I've
sell it,
never
too.
seen an individual outside of, I mean, Thinner and Regulators and whatever, yes, but these first 4 I've never seen.
I've seen Roadwork and Long Walk. I haven't seen.
I've seen Running Man.
Maybe I've seen Running Man. I think I saw like a Schwarzenegger tie into that, but the first 3 I definitely have never seen ever, like in a library or elsewhere.
Well, yeah, this has been a great discussion about a not so great book. So thanks, guys. But before we close out, I want to thank Allison for joining us, and you'll be seeing more of her as we move forward. But she also has another podcast about another piece of art that you may also love. So I'm going to let her just plug that for a moment.
Thanks, man. Julie Starbird and I, who's maybe the funniest person I know, host a podcast called Podlander Drunkcast, an Outlander podcast. It is exactly what it sounds like. If you are a fan of the television show or the Outlander or the books from which they're inspired, or you like Ronald Moore, or you like listening to women get drunk and say really filthy things about good-looking men, then that's the podcast for you. You can find us on Twitter at Podlandercast.
Is Julie funnier than Charlie Decker?
And you can find us on Twitter at the Losers Club Pod.
Yeah.
And also on Facebook and also on Instagram. And again, please leave us a review on iTunes. Leave us a review on Facebook. Send us a message and tell us, the opera of Rage that we missed out and we didn't catch. No, we love to engage with you guys. We love to talk, and this is all discussion and a community.
And anything we missed or that, anything you want to touch on thematically, feel free to let us know.
Yeah, we really want to hear your thoughts on Rage too, so please post on our wall. Facebook tells us that we have a very high response rate, so well, that's because there's many of us who run that account. So
there's a bunch of us, so you're gonna get some snark, you're gonna get some sass, and you're gonna get some love.
If you're
some
getting
class and some ass.
If you're getting a smiley emoji, though, that's either Dan or I, right?
Yeah,
you
never do the emojis.
Yeah, you and Justin don't.
Me and Randall are the nice boys, and then Justin and Rothman are
if you
bad
get
boys.
If you get a curt response, it's probably from Justin.
Mac's a nice. Mac
finds a lot of really cool stuff to share, like media wise. That's pretty it's fun.
And I don't know, Allison, what's your Facebook presence going to be, or like tonally, what is it like?
I guess kind of snarky, but probably it'll just be about how apparently all women's are virgins or slutsies.
Yeah.
That'll probably be it.
That sounds about right.
If you see a feminist killjoy in your midst, that's probably Dan.
That's Dan. Thanks so much for listening, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks with Night Shift, which is going to be a new kind of episode for us. Long days and pleasant nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
Consequence Podcast Network.
This is Acast Recommends. Every week we pick one of our favorite shows, and this is one we think you're gonna love.
I'm Molly Hockey. I'm an actor, writer, comedian. I'm 40, I'm single, and I'm trying to get pregnant, so I started Spermcast. I interviewed potential sperm donors, doctors, witches, scientists, surrogates. I did hilariously awkward home inseminations. I got pregnant. I had a miscarriage. I laughed. I cried. A lot. I got sperm from a sperm bank and started fertility treatments. Now here I am in season 3. If you're pondering motherhood or in the thick of trying to get there, or if you just like comedy and watching a woman lose her ever-loving mind in real time, subscribe now to Spermcast.
Acast is home to the biggest podcasts from the U.S. and around the world. Subscribe to this show and hundreds more now via Acast or wherever you get your podcasts.